Welcome to the episode 4 of the Terrible Take Sports Talk podcast. We are four guys who sit around to talk about all things sports, give our unbiased opinions, and give terrible takes. I'm your producer and host, Holden Ottman, and I am joined by
Your boy, Lucas Toller.
John Adam Lingefeld.
Jacob Stockley.
And to start off this week's episode, we must start off by offering some free pizza. Who doesn't love some free pizza? Am I right? Everyone loves some free pizza. So let's spin this wheel to see who wins a free personal pizza offered by our sponsor, Revival Pizza. And we will be choosing by a wheel. And we are spinning the wheel now. And the winner is Blake Bassett.
Your boy, Blake.
He cheated like the Astros.
Congratulations to Blake, as he is the first winner of Revival Pizza Trivia Question of the Week. Blake will be in contact very soon and to give your coupon for free personal pizza by Revival Pizza located in Stroyton, Louisiana. The answer to last week's question was, how many NFL teams have a star in their logo? And the answer was 4. Dallas, Houston, New England, and Tennessee. And no, it is not the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that is not considered a star in their logo. It looks like a star, but it's not considered a star.
We did our research.
Yes, we did our research. And now is the time to introduce this week's Revival Pizza Trivia Question of the Week. Revival Pizza, price first, crust second, is located on 8707 Highway 165 in Stroyton, Louisiana. And they serve pizza, burgers, and wings, and would love to serve you soon. For this week's question, what is considered America's pastime? Once again, what is considered America's pastime? So for our first segment of this podcast, of this episode, we have the NFL. We have 6 close games that were decided by a field goal this weekend, and we have the Broncos possibly making a playoff push, winning on a 3-game winning streak against the Packers, Chiefs, and Bills. And Stockley possibly might have the best take of the year, saying that Joshua Dobbs was a great move to the Vikings. And will Vikings become playoff contenders? We'll see. John, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so there were a ton of close games this past weekend in the NFL, all by field goals. And it's kind of crazy just how close these games actually were. Whether the team should have actually been in the games or should they not have, I don't really know. But as sticks out most to me, even though they were all really close games, it's not going to be the Broncos game, even though I am a Broncos fan, surprisingly enough. I think, for me, what stands out the most is going to be the Commanders versus the Seahawks game. So, as far as what actually took place, Geno Smith had a great game. He threw for 369 yards and 2 TDs. Sam Howell's having a great season as well for the Commanders. I think he's pretty underlooked as far as starting QBs in the league. Threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Brian Robinson had, as a running back, 6 receptions, 119 yards receiving, and a touchdown. What really stood out the most, and it's funny enough because they won by a field goal, is Jason Myers, the kicker for Seattle Seahawks. He kicked for 5 for 5 for field goals, 2 for 2 for extra points, and that's a total of 20 points just by himself as a kicker. And I know Reese Altman, as a kicker in high school and went to go play at Southeastern, would really love that stat line. But for the Commanders, they are in 3rd in the NFC East at 4-6, and Seattle moved to 6-3, which is 2nd in the NFC West. So they couldn't really afford to lose that game, and you could kind of say that the Commanders needed to win that game. So it was a big game for either team. It's kind of one of those games where either one could have won the game, and obviously it was a close game in the end, but they both needed a dub, and Seattle was able to convert in the last minute. Jason Sanders had a great day kicking the field goals, and it puts them in a good spot in their division as far as being able to possibly make the playoffs. If they were able to go on a run later in the season, I do think they have the talent to be able to possibly make a push in some teams, like the Commanders, some of your bottom half of the league kind of teams. If they can pull out some more wins, they could see themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, so for my close game, I'm actually going to have. So the most impactful one for me has to be Denver versus Buffalo. I think for like two reasons. One, the Broncos are now on a 3-game win streak against three really good teams, or two really good teams plus the Packers, right? And then for the Bills' sake, they came into the season. They're supposed to be top three in their conference. They're supposed to probably be top two. Everybody's riding high with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs duo. How are they going to perform? Is this finally the time, finally the year that they get to the Super Bowl? And boom, week one comes around and they lay an egg. And the theme this season for the Bills has been inconsistency, and it leads to a question of what's wrong? What's wrong with the Bills organization? And you can point fingers at everyone, but I feel like from what I'm taking away from like watching like other sports shows and stuff, they're kind of pointing to like, is Josh Allen the Bills' worst enemy? Is he so good? Like he could play so good some games, and then in some games he's so inconsistent. He just throws up balls, hoping that someone's going to be down there, and he turns the ball over, and it's costing them games. And I was watching Get Up this morning, and someone said it was a game of margins. And when you come down to a game of like the Bills and the Bengals, Bills and the Chiefs, and it's a really close game, you know, when you go into crunch time, usually the quarterback that's coming out on top isn't going to be Josh Allen. I mean, we've seen it with Mahomes driving down and pulling it out. We've seen it with the Bengals beating in the playoffs last year. And so, looking at his stats, his interceptions, he's tied with Dak right now in interceptions. And we constantly badger Dak on how he's terrible, how he's a pick machine, how he's so inconsistent. He's like an average quarterback.
Yes.
Josh Allen's played in 16 less games, and he has the same amount of interceptions. He's averaging a pick every single game this season. This is arguably his worst season he's had, but it does raise the question, is Josh Allen is the problem? And on top of that, they're now outside of playoff contention. They're like, I think they're currently like 10th right now. You've got the entire AFC North right there at like the second spot, and then you have 5, 6, and 7. And so they're currently on the hunt. A team that was supposed to be top three is currently in the hunt. They lose to a Broncos team who arguably isn't the best team. Their defense is terrible. And so for this, it's most impactful on the Broncos playoff push potentially, and then the Bills, can they make the playoffs? Can they push for the playoffs? What's going on with them?
Lucas?
Yeah, I think it'd be easy for me to go with the Broncos as a Broncos fan, even though that game gave me about 7 heart attacks. So I think for me, it's got to be the Browns and the Ravens because I think it really affects both teams. Ravens dropped to 7-3 instead of going 8-2, and being a driving force in that division. But for me, it's really on the Browns. Browns lost Nick Chubb week 3, and somehow are still 6-3 with a Deshaun Watson that has underperformed ever since he's come back from being out for the year with this whole scandal. And so they're sitting at 6-3, the Browns are, with arguably the best defense in football right now. They're probably top 3. Myles Garrett, we've already discussed, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, if not the leader for that position. But here's the big thing, is that Deshaun Watson is now out for the year. It was said that he's getting shoulder surgery. So for them to get that last win they could get with Deshaun Watson and go 6-3, it puts them in a good position with the rest of their schedule. So they got Steelers, They got Steelers, Broncos, and Rams. Those next three are all winnable, even with P.J. Walker. Even though I'm a Broncos fan, with P.J. Walker, those are all winnable. I think P.J. went 2-1 earlier this year. They beat the Niners and the Colts, and then I think they lost to the Seahawks with P.J. Walker. So he can win. He's gotten them 2 of their 6 wins this year. But you got Steelers, Broncos, Rams, Jaguars, Bears, Texans, Jets, and Bengals. I think easily 4 of those games are winnable. If almost, I would say Steelers. They'll split the season with the Steelers. Say that Steelers, Broncos, Rams, and Bears. Those are 4 wins I think they can get. I think they could, with their defense, they could beat the Texans and the Jets. And so it's 6-3. That win this past Sunday was huge with losing Deshaun. I mean, they could make the playoffs with P.J. Walker. Now, are they going to make it far? I don't think so, but their defense is elite. And they're going to keep them in every game that they play. And so if P.J. Walker can just not turn over the football, all you got to do is not turn over the football. Don't be Josh Allen, right? We don't need you to be Superman. We don't need you going 20 of 40 for 412 yards, but also 3 interceptions. I think the Browns beating the Ravens, getting that last one with Deshaun was huge for them having a chance at making the playoffs this year because they have some winnable games with a guy like P.J. Walker, who I think is pretty good at just not turning the ball over. So I'd be interested to see where they end up at the end of the season. And then again, for the Ravens losing that game is not great for them because that keeps them with the rest of the division. If they could have went 8-2, that gives them like a game and a half above everybody. But right now they're at 7-3, so there's a half game above the Browns. Even though I do think they pull out the division by the end of the season, getting that game and a half would have been really big for their team and the future for their season. Looking at a Browns team that has a softer schedule after this week, and even a Bengals team that's starting to catch fire, starting to get hot. So I would say Browns and Ravens was the most impactful win and loss for each team from the field goal games this weekend.
John, you got something to say? What you're itching to say? Something?
I mean, not exactly. I had one little comment I wanted to give to Jacob's little input. So as much as I am, like I said, a Broncos fan, and I want to see them succeed, as far as the last 3 games were, obviously the Packers, they don't really have an established starting quarterback. But the Chiefs game, bad weather, Patrick Mahomes had to basically try to throw in the snow in a blizzard and stuff. And so I think the Broncos had as much help as you can possibly get as far as weather in that game. And so it kept the ball on the ground, which if you're one-dimensional, it can definitely help you win a game against one of the better teams in the league. And then the Bills, like you said, Josh Allen threw 2 picks. They had 3 fumbles. And Patrick Surtain might be the best cornerback in the league. Now, I know you said our defense isn't very good, but he's got to be top 2 or 3 cornerback in all of NFL football. He held Stephon Diggs to 3 receptions, 34 yards, and he's been doing that. He's locked down people his whole career ever since he's been at Denver. He always gets the top target, and he, for the most part, shuts him down. He doesn't really allow a whole lot of big plays. And Denver also was able to have a 15-minute time of possession over the Bills. And that in that situation, like, obviously Denver needs that win. Body would in that situation against a Bills team that everybody coming into the season is always talking about contenders for the Super Bowl and do they have the second best quarterback in the league. And this year, Josh Allen's kind of showing that he's maybe not that guy, and maybe the Bills aren't that team. So I guess my only thing about the Bills-Broncos game is I think the Broncos have been kind of handed the last couple games. Love to see it. I mean, as a fan, I love that they're able to win games. And in their division, it's really the Chiefs and then whoever won second place. So the Raiders, the Chargers, who wants it the most? And winning against 2 of the top teams, as you could say, in back-to-back weeks is definitely a plus for them. But how they got the win isn't exactly that they won it. It's that maybe those teams had something negative affect them in their play, like the Chiefs with the snow and the weather, and then the Bills with the turnovers. I think that might kind of affect the outcome of the game rather than exactly the team themselves.
And I would agree. I mean, if you look at it on a statistical standpoint, even watching the game, right? I mean, the Bills probably should have won that game because, I mean, you can't have a 12-man illegal substitution, 12 men on the field with 3 seconds left on a field goal. That should not happen. That should never happen. That is a head coach and a special teams coordinator's worst nightmare. And, unfortunately for the Bills, it came true. But a win is a win. And, maybe the Broncos can take what they have and take these handed wins and maybe turn it into something. I mean, Russ, low key, hasn't been having a bad season. I mean, he has 8 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And like you said, Patrick Surtain is a dog. And yeah, he's arguably a top 5 quarterback locked down in the league. But I mean, yeah, that defense is terrible. It's 32nd in the league with yards allowed with over 400. That's absurd. But if you guys were to make a playoff, try to make the playoff race interesting, the defense certainly has to improve because Russ right now is taking care of the ball. He's doing all he can with the weapons he's been given. But yeah, I mean, you make up good points, but it's how are you going to choose and take those wins and turn it into something better?
I would say our defense has been good though. Outside, I mean, of course we gave up 70, right? That'll never leave us, right? But I mean, the past 3 wins have been good defensive games. We committed the Bills to 4 turnovers last night, or sorry, not last night,
5.
Monday night. 5. There you go. Yeah, I mean it's 5. And then you can say what you want about the snow, but we also had to play in the snow against the Chiefs, and we won, right? And so I would say there's no excuses. We have been playing very well on defense. We've been playing the type of defense I expected the beginning of the season now, and our schedule is not super hard the rest of the way out. Let me run through this before I hand it over to our boy Holden. So the rest of our schedule. So Vikings this week. Big game for Vikings and the Broncos, both getting their wins last week, trying to make a playoff push. But Vikings, Browns, Texans, I'll be there. Chargers, Lions, Patriots, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders. I think our ceiling's like 9-8 with that, but it's still a winnable games. Outside, I think the Lions are not winnable. We're going to get beat. And so I think that's huge for us. Last thing to comment is while we were starting this up, the Ravens beat the Bengals. So they are now 8-3. That's why I say that win would have been big for them because they could be 9-2 if they beat the Browns last week, top the AFC entirely, not just the North. So Ja is going to say something, and then I guess to Holden.
I also just found this out as well. So the Browns are actually going to be starting their 3rd-string quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think is his name.
Really? He's getting the start?
Yes. He's getting the start over.
Has he even played in a game this season?
They're giving him the start. So I don't know if that changes your thought about
it. Browns are missing the playoffs now.
So do the Broncos beat the Browns now?
Beat the Brown out of them.
Wow.
I like that word.
Okay, Holden, tell us about the Vikings, man.
So, Stockley, 2 weeks ago, made possibly the best prediction, saying that the Vikings could reach the playoff with Joshua Dobbs, and so far they have won 2 games with Joshua Dobbs. Just some stats: Joshua Dobbs in 2 games has 101.4 QBR. He's 43 for 64 with 426 yards, 3 TDs and 0 interceptions. Pretty good for for what people have thought he was going to do, and I think they could possibly make a playoff push, even though they have their starting quarterback out.
And
his,
yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
I'm riding on the Stockley train with this prediction. The Vikings.
2 weeks too late on when I said it, but that's okay. I'm glad you're hyped. You're jumping on now. But I think the Vikings can be contenders. I mean, on my paper, I have contenders question mark. Yes. I trust in the Pastronauts. Aerospace engineers must unite and come together on this one. He's a smart boy, right? Aerospace engineering. That's hard. So he's smart. I will say, right, when he was with the Cardinals, his record wasn't too good, but I think that has to deal with the system and the pieces he was around. Going into this Vikings team now, I mean, these are stats up to date now, but the Vikings are 10th in offense and 13 in defense. So they're like average. They're like, if you split that's a playoff. Those are playoff numbers, like playoff team numbers. Arizona's 25th in offense and 22nd in defense. I mean, based on what I've seen, I think McConnell and the OC for the Vikings way better than what the Cardinals are doing over there. And since Dobbs has gone into Minnesota, right, the style seems a little bit different. You're seeing Dobbs run more. He's got a better offensive line. He hasn't thrown any picks. He's taking care of the ball. Like you said, his rating's pretty decent. And right now the Vikings are riding high on 5 straight wins. And coming up, they have the Broncos. That's a Sunday night football game. I think they take the dub there. They've got the Bears. That'll be a win. They've got the Raiders. That'll be a win. They've got the Bengals. That game will be really tough because the Bengals right now, after that loss to the Ravens, they're fighting for a playoff spot. And every single game from here on out for them is going to be it's a must win because that's one game. And so, I kind of have them losing that one. And then the Lions, that'll be a loss. And then they've got the Packers, and then they got the Lions again. Depending on like weather conditions or like the home game for the Vikings against the Lions, they could sneak it out. But realistically, I have them going 1, 2, 3, 4. They could easily go 4-3, 5-3. They're currently 6-4 right now. They're probably looking at a 10-7 season in my eyes, maybe 11-6. That's the ceiling, and I think that they're going to make the playoffs. 10-7, they're making the playoffs. I trust in the Pastronaut. Hop on my Vikings train. Go ahead. I know Lucas is begging to disagree, and that's okay.
I'm gonna disagree. Here's where it is for me. I think I agree with you. Bengals and Lions 2 times, that's 3 losses. I think we can all agree. Just on paper, those should be 3 losses. Here's the thing, but the disparity's not far. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to go 7-10 because if they lose to the Bears and the Packers, and there's just bigger problems. But I think they beat the Broncos. They beat the Bears. I think they lose to the Raiders. Okay? Only reason is I think the Raiders are hot. 2-game win streak. That's not a lot. But the culture since the new interim coach has taken over is interesting to watch them. They play harder. They play with more passion. Devontae Adams is getting the ball. Josh Jacobs is getting his carries back. I think that could be a loss that puts you at 9-8. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're going to go 7-10. I'm not being a stupid, but I think you can miss the playoffs by going 9-8 if you lose that game to the Raiders.
I would agree.
And that keeps you out of the playoffs. But I'll be honest, 9-8 is still tremendous with Josh Dobbs.
Oh, well, yes, and they don't have Kirk. And yeah, with Josh Dobbs,
comeback player of the year, Josh Dobbs, comeback player of the year.
Go ahead.
My only thing is either one of those scenarios seems legit. If they do lose Bengals, Lions, and somehow you throw in a loss to the Raiders, good season. You can't take anything away from that. If they win the games that you could see them winning, which is what Jacob was saying, possibly a 10-7 year, great season. But here's something that y'all haven't said either. Justin Jefferson comes back from his injury, and he starts playing, and he's a top wide receiver in the league. how does that look adding him back to that offense? Because you see what they're doing without him.
That's a
If you
great
put him
question.
in the lineup, how does that look?
I mean, you don't have to force the ball to him, right? You can spread it evenly. I mean, we've seen that time before. I want to say last year with the team. I don't remember, but it's the same thing where like the superstar goes out and they start playing better, not force feeding him the ball. Now, is he really talented, and should he get the majority of the targets when and if he comes back? Absolutely. But you do bring up a good question because they're 5-0 without him. I mean, they're
Right.
undefeated and haven't lost a game.
Right.
And
And as of
so-
right now, I know on fantasy, I didn't exactly look at how far he's out from coming back, but I know he's projected points again and sitting on IR. So
yeah, he was
it's gotta
limited
be
at
somewhat
practice
soon.
today.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll play this week, but he can definitely suit up the next week when they play the Bears. I think that'll be an easy ease him back in game because the Bears are really bad. But
Just to point on
So
Justin Jefferson, and then
basically-
hold up.
So basically, what
Just
you're saying is that the Vikings suck with Justin Jefferson because they're
Now, let
5-0
me touch on
without
that.
him. So they need to.
Let me touch on that. Let me touch on that because I had a feeling Holden was coming with something ignorant. Okay, so I saw that earlier today. That's what I was going to say. Stockley was, they keep winning without Jay Jettas, but let's see who they've played in those 5 games. The Bears, the Niners, great win, fantastic win. Jordan Addison, I think, is a sleeper pick for Rookie of the Year. Okay, he's on my fantasy team. He has like 9 touchdowns through the season already. He is balling. Okay. So Vikings is the best win through these 5 games. But Niners, Packers, Falcons, Saints. Those aren't 5 tremendous teams to win without Justin Jefferson. Okay. And they have TJ Hawkinson.
yeah, but if you're looking at record-wise, the Saints are in playoff contention, and so are the Falcons.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFC is just kind of bad, but
yeah, but they have TJ Hawkinson playing like a top 3 tight end right now. Right? He's playing phenomenal. Just statistically, he is. Jordan Addison as a receiver, and then just some production at running back and some of your secondary receiver guys are playing well. So I would say, even without Justin Jefferson, they'll play well. They'll be even scarier when he comes back.
So what you're saying is maybe that Raiders loss that you think might become a W if he's back.
Hey, anything can happen in sports, baby.
That's
Any
right.
given Sunday. Any given
Kevin
Sunday.
Garnett
Play the game.
says, anything is possible.
Even Holden making a good take's possible. Boys, it is time for the battle of the 2 sports encyclopedias. Right now we have 2-0 Stockley. Through 2 weeks, Stockley has a 2-0 lead, and it has been super, super close. And I think this one's going to be even a little closer. So, this week, we have 2010 to 2022, the last 13 Heisman Trophy winners. Okay? So, we've been doing this rock, paper, scissors, shoot to see who goes. But I think we need to do something a little more interesting to really give a chance to not just John Adam as he's lost, but whenever someone loses, loser goes first. From now on, loser goes first. Okay? We want to make it give a competitive advantage.
Too good, huh?
We want to give a competitive advantage to whoever loses and give them a chance. So if John Adam wins this week, Stockley will go first next week in the game. So we have 2022 to 2010. You have to get the exact year right in your guess. So if you're off a year, you'll get a strike, 3 strikes, and you're out. And if we have a tie or anything comes up, we need a tiebreaker. I have one on hand. Are you boys ready?
Let's get this bread.
Do this.
Okay, John, Adam, Langerfield, up first to bat. What is your guess?
I'm going to go 2021 Bryce Young.
That is correct, you Bama boy.
You go Bama boy, I go Oklahoma boy. Give me my dad's lifeline password. 2017 Baker Mayfield.
2017 Baker Mayfield is correct. Is 1-1.
All right, I'm gonna go another Bama boy. 2020 Devontae Smith.
You may have got it wrong in your top 5 videos by saying he won it in 2019, but in this game, you're correct with 2020. 2-1.
Well, then I'm going to go with another Oklahoma boy. Give me back-to-back OU winners, 2018 Kyler Murray.
Correct. It is 2-2.
All right, I'm going to go all the way to 2010. Give me Cam Newton, Superman.
Superman Cam is correct.
Then I'm going to go Big 12 boy. Give me one of the best commentators there is in college football, RG3 2011.
That
Robert
is
Griffin.
correct. That is correct. It is 3-3.
All right, I'm going to go to 2019. Give me the LSU love, Joe Burrow.
Joe Shiesty. Good job, John Adam. You are correct.
Let me get the NFL MVP candidate right now that should be number one on everyone's board. 2016 Lamar Jackson.
You are correct.
Okay, since I'm really wanting to take a dub this week in this trivia game, I'm going to start eating some dubs and take 2013 Jameis Winston.
2013 Jameis Winston.
That was good. That was good.
Is correct.
Well, then I'm going to quack like a duck and go 2014 and go and give me Marcus Mariota 2014.
Correct. The first year of the playoffs. You are correct. It is now 5-5. Sorry.
All right. Well, if I were to lose this week, I'd probably end up crying in my mom's arms. Williams, 2022.
Man. Never say never, Ja. You're correct.
I'm going to go with Money Manziel 2012, Johnny Manziel.
You are correct.
Johnny Football.
All right. I'm going to go with the King, Derrick Henry, 2015.
John Adam, you are correct.
And John Adams is going to go out on the king. He's on top.
He is. But wait. Since I have heard from people that it is such an easy quiz, bonus question for 2 points.
What?
Give me that. For 2 points?
Bonus question for 2 points. Each of you will need to write your answer and show it to the screen. If Stockley gets it right and John Adam does not, Stockley will win this week.
This is a lot of pressure, man.
Are you going to ask the question? Can I do a drum roll for them to hold it up?
Are y'all ready to write?
Yeah.
This may be easy as well. You never know. But let's just see what happens.
Drum roll, please.
John Adam and Stockley, for the win, write down the name of the only person to win 2 Heisman trophies. Who is the only player to win 2 Heisman trophies?
Oh my goodness!
Not so easy.
Oh my
Who's gonna get
goodness.
it?
Oh my goodness.
Encyclopedia is looking thin now, huh?
It is looking real thin. I gotta reach deep in my bag. Oh my word. I
Go to
have
the
So we're
no
glossary,
in
idea.
baby.
the mid to late 80s, if I'm correct.
Mid to late 80s. What? Uh,
These boys stressing. John got
man, I
his
gotta,
hands over his head. He don't know what the answer.
bro, I don't know. Okay. Well, you said mid to late 80s.
Yeah. Holden, do I give him a position? John
Yeah, I
Adam
think
may
you should.
have it. No, John
Give
Adam
him
may have it.
position. Give him
Nope.
position.
John Adam.
If
John
John
Adam's
doesn't get this
writing.
right, then give him position.
Okay.
I don't know if this is right, but
Do you both have an answer?
I do have an answer.
Okay. Show the screen. You people listening at
3,
home won't be able to tell, but show the
Oh.
screen.
2, 1.
Oh.
Reveal.
I have Eddie
Deion.
George, but I know it's wrong. I picked the
Yeah,
wrong Ohio State guy. I know who
you
it is.
did. You
Wrong
did.
guy.
You
No,
both
no,
got it
no.
wrong.
It's
It is
Archie Griffin.
Archie
It's
Griffin.
Archie Griffin. No,
oh, John
no.
Adam wins.
Why?
John
No.
Adam wins.
I picked the wrong guy.
Let's go,
Oh, man.
baby.
John Adam
Comeback season, baby.
securing his
Comeback season, baby.
first
Oh,
dub.
John
I
Adam.
knew it was a
John
running back
Adam.
from Ohio State. I picked the wrong one.
John Adam with his first win of the season. Congrats, John Adam. Hey, what an electric finish again.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that was
You
god.
can't say it's not competitive.
Exactly.
Man. Well, congrats, John Adam. Congrats on the win. You're now
Thank
down
you.
1.
Hey,
Congrats.
I
You
would just
deserve
like
it.
to thank you guys and all my fans and Alabama. I would just like to
Oh my
thank
goodness.
your Heisman winners, the 3 Heisman winners that I was able to get correct. That led me to my victory today. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Wow.
So the series is now a still Stockley at advantage of 2-1, but John finally securing his first dub of this third week of the segment. Now transitioning into our next segment, we have NCAA football. We'll be talking about 6 big games this week. Heisman favorites, each giving who we think should be the Heisman right now, and giving a sleeper pick this week on who we think is going to win a game this week, and then we'll each be revealing our top 4 college football playoffs, who we think should be in the top 4. So I'll go first. I'll give a rundown. We'll give a run through of the 6 games we have. We have number 18 Utah at number 21 Arizona, number 2 Georgia at 13 Tennessee, 25 Kansas State at 16 Kansas, number 8 Washington at number 12 Oregon State, and 11 Louisville at Miami. John, go first.
All right, I'm gonna go off with a very interesting take here, and it could come back to bite me. Everyone is gonna probably question me, and if it hits, then it hits. If it doesn't, I'll look like an idiot and part of the show. I want to take Miami over Louisville this week. And as much as it may not be necessarily that Louisville is in the top 10 or necessarily that they would go on to win the ACC and then make the playoff, I don't necessarily think that. But as far as who Miami has played this year, it's not far off from what Louisville has played. Louisville was able to play Notre Dame, and obviously they beat Notre Dame, but it was at Louisville. And it did ruin the chance of Notre Dame possibly being able to make the playoff with one loss to that Ohio State game, which there was a lot of conversation at the end of that game as to, not having all the guys on the field for the last play or the last 2 plays. And so they made Notre Dame look pretty bad, make them look worse than what they actually might have been. But for Miami, they've beaten Texas A&M. They beat them in week 2. They beat Clemson. And that Texas A&M game, by the way, it wasn't just some like 7-point field goal walk off, whatever kind of thing. It was 48-33. They manhandled Texas A&M, and I was not expecting that because Texas A&M's coming off, Jimbo Fisher's here, and we have a great recruiting class and all of the talk, and they got completely stumped in week 2 against Miami. They did lose. They lost to Georgia Tech, and I think we all remember the fumble situation, not just kneeing the ball down and taking the dub. They ran a play, and it fumbled, and Georgia Tech was able to go down and win the game. They lost to North Carolina, who is currently ranked. They lost to them only by 10, 41-31. And, I mean, you could say Louisville doesn't look that much better based off of who they lost to because they lost to Pittsburgh 38-21. And to me, that's not you got manhandled by Pitt. The schedule itself doesn't really change much as far as Louisville to Miami, and Louisville's ranked 11. Obviously, Miami has that extra loss on top of it, and they're not ranked, but it's at Miami, and Hard Rock is a pretty bumping place when a ranked opponent's coming in. And they also have Miami as a 1-point favorite currently. Now, when was the last time you saw a top 15 team ranked play an unranked team and be a 1-point favorite? I do not think they are contenders. Louisville are frauds. They won one good game against Notre Dame, and now they've just won out since then. Hasn't been that impressive to me. And they will lose to Miami this weekend. And then there will be no conversation for top 4. And then they will probably go on to lose to Florida State in the ACC championship game.
I would agree. I do think they're frauds, and I do think they'll lose in the ACC championship game. But I think you're wrong. So not so fast, my friend. I've got Louisville taking this one. But like on paper and statistics, they're actually relatively close to one another. So like on defense, Louisville's 16th and Miami's 20th, and that's only a 4-yard difference. On offense, Miami's 37th and Louisville's 28th, and that's only an 8-yard, 9-yard difference. But the thing that stands out the most when I was looking into it is the turnovers, and I think that's how Louisville will win the game. Van Dyke is a turnover machine. He got benched against Florida State, and they stuck in Emory, and Miami actually played close. However, they are going to roll with Van Dyke again this week. And I think if he continues to turn over the ball, I think Louisville will end up winning this game by a touchdown or at least 10. The turnover margin for Miami is -5. It's not good. And Louisville is +6, and they generate turnovers. I do think this one is close, but I do think Louisville will end up pulling away and winning this game.
How good do you think Florida State is currently, Jacob? Like, you think they're a pretty good team?
Yeah, I think they're a top 6 team.
Okay, if they played Louisville today, how bad do you think they would beat Louisville?
Against Florida State, probably like 10 points.
Okay.
14.
If they played Miami, how bad do you think they would beat them?
Florida State or Louisville?
If Florida State played Miami.
Well, I mean, they did last week.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if they played them again, do you think it would be worse or around the same?
Yes, I think it'll be worse.
Okay. I'm just wondering because
Florida State, I feel like has struggled in their last 2 games, including the Miami one. So I feel like if you stuck the Florida State team that played LSU, which was a way better performance than against Miami, I think it's a worse outcome for Miami.
I gotcha. I was just wondering because, like you just said, like Miami did just hang with them this past weekend. And so as far as like what Louisville has done, they beat Notre Dame, and they beat them well. It's not like they barely beat them. They beat them 33-20. But I guess my question is like, as far as who, like, obviously it means more for Louisville because then they can go on and play Florida State. But in this game, in this scenario, Miami looks like they're playing really good ball. I mean, you say Florida State's not playing as good, and it may just be them that's been struggling the past couple weeks, but that could be. I don't know. I just think Miami may put more to the table, and obviously, like you just said, that the stats wise, lining them up, it's not that big of a difference, and so the turnovers may be the key. But at home, they may not turn the
I
ball over.
mean, when's the last time Miami sold out a home game? I mean, it probably not since they were actually put in the top four in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, the Ed Reeds and
So yeah, and so
company.
personally, I don't think you can go ahead, Lucas.
So John Adams says that Louisville hasn't been impressive. I just want to touch on that. I want to rebuttal you a little bit. They did beat Notre Dame by 13, right? Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country, had to beat them with a run play from the 1-yard line at the last second. Let's just throw that one out there. Who was the team that you say Florida State struggled with? Would you say that they struggled against Boston College, beating them by 2 points?
They struggled also
Yeah.
against Pittsburgh because they struggled in the first half before they actually pulled away.
So they struggled with Boston College, beat them by 2. The week after they played Boston College, Louisville played Boston College and beat them by 28. Okay. Also, I would say they somewhat struggled with Duke until Duke's quarterback got hurt. Backup came in, they pulled away. Do we forget Louisville beat Duke 23-0? I'm not saying Louisville's perfect, right? They could easily lose this weekend, but they're a good team, right? They're a team that lost to Pitt about halfway through the year, and we see a lot of top 4 teams, top 5 teams in the playoff era lose one game, and it's just a random loss they have, but then they'll beat everybody else.
My only question
Now,
though is, do they lose by 17?
Who?
Because they lost to 17 by
Yeah.
Pitt.
Yeah, they lost to Pitt by 17.
Right.
But the week after that's when they beat Duke by 23-0, then beat Virginia Tech by 31. I think Florida State beat them pretty good too. They did struggle against Virginia, but I think this week's the measuring stick. Miami plays Florida State back to back with Louisville. They both play Miami, and so we'll see. Now, you say Van Dyke's a turnover machine. Do we forget that? I'm pretty sure Van Dyke didn't play all last week against Florida State.
That's what I said. He got benched, but he's playing again this week. Like Van Dyke is starting.
So I think it's easy to say what ifs. I would just say I think Louisville's better than them having not being impressive. We'll see this week. They beat Miami about the same way Florida State did. Maybe we'll see them on the same playing field. And I think it's even bigger that Louisville's going to get some of their good tests late in the year. Now, they're not playing undefeated teams, but Miami, and then they play Kentucky. And we know Kentucky's good. They're not 10-0, but they're a good team. So for them to play them two before they play Florida State, we talk, Stockley shakes his hand, we talk praises of the SEC as if they're heads and heels, so even their mid-level teams should be better than all the other teams, right? And so I think Kentucky's not a bad team, and I think that we're going to see Louisville have 2 really good tests to see if they can make it to Florida State, and if they handle both of them, maybe even have a good chance against Florida State.
But I guess my rebuttal to that is Miami's not even ranked, and they're like a 1-point favorite. They're a favorite against a ranked 11 team. So obviously the committee, whoever does the sports betting and everything, don't think they're that great. If they're with a one loss to.
I don't play into that though, because like LSU was a favorite against Florida State. I think how many upsets have happened, right?
I think it's also due to the fact that Miami leads the series 11-3. So if they take three into account, then I can see.
Yeah. I don't play into the sports book and they're a 1-point favorite because I can't tell you how many. Well, they're favored to win and then they get blown out by the other team. I don't know how to feel about that, but that's what I think about just that game in particular.
Lucas, what do you think is a big game this week?
Man, I think a big game this week is Washington and Oregon State. Look, on paper, we think Washington is all that in a bag of chips. I am verbally out there in our group chat and other areas I am a big Washington non-believer. I don't think they're what they're cracked up to be. I think they have skated by some opponents like Arizona State, and I think that this is a good week to see a team upset Washington. Why? Because who are the last two teams that Oregon State is playing? Washington and Oregon. Who were two of the first teams to leave the Pac-12 starting next year? Oregon and Washington. Who's one of the two teams staying in the Pac-12? Oregon State. I want Oregon State to beat both of them on their way out of the Pac-12.
And I will say Oregon State is still in it if they win out, because then they have the head-to-head tiebreaker for Oregon in the championship game.
They will. I don't have much statistically with this game, more than the fact that Oregon State, I think, plays really good defense. And I think we see Washington struggle when they play a really good defense. And so I think they have enough offense to beat Washington. I think it's going to be kind of like the Texas TCU prediction from last week. I think Oregon State's going to have to hold Washington under like a 25-26. They can't get in a shootout with Washington. Washington will run. If Washington gets to 30, they're going to win, I think. And so I think Oregon's defense is good enough to stand up to Washington's offense. But Oregon's offense, I think, is better.
Oregon State.
Sorry. Oregon State's offense is better than Washington's defense in a way they can put up points if they need to. And so I think that's a big game. It would be an upset, so I'll call that my upset of the week. Upset of the week, I am picking Oregon State to beat Washington, right? So Oregon State beating Washington. Hopefully Oregon State goes and beats Oregon. Then they play Washington State again in the Pac-12, and then they beat them again. Okay? But no, Oregon State over Washington is my upset of the week. Stockley.
I actually agree with you. On my paper, I have Oregon State winning. If you look at the last few wins Washington has had post-Oregon, there's only been one game plus 10. It's been 8 points, 9 points, 10.7. And if you look on paper, you bring up the defense. Oregon State's turnover margin is plus 10. That's top 6 in the country. Washington's turnover margin is -2. Their defense on pass defense is 122 out of 130 teams. Their rush defense is 50, but let's be honest, most people don't usually run nowadays in the Pac-12. But I do agree with you. I think that Oregon State offense, which ranks 19th in the country, by the way, top 20, will put enough points to put Washington on the ropes. And if anyone is going to blow this Pac-12 and implode from the inside out, like Utah has done, like Iowa State has done in the Big 12, I think it'll be Oregon State this year. And I think it starts on Saturday, and I think Oregon State beats Washington.
Hey, shout out to DJ for making the decision to leave Clemson when we all thought he was the problem at Clemson, right? DJ, I'm not going to pronounce his last name because I'm going to butcher it. But
Galilei.
Yeah, he left Clemson, and we're like, good, he needs to get out of there. He's ruining Clemson. And then he goes to Oregon State and revives his college career. 19th offense in the country. You look at Clemson with Cade Klubnik, however you say his name, and they're still struggling. So shout out to DJ for getting out of Clemson, showing that he actually is a good quarterback if he has the right system around him. It's fun to watch him again after he was the butt of every single joke in college football as the quarterback at Clemson.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a clean sweep for our picks this week. I have Oregon State as well. So hopefully all the pod boys take a dub. It's going to come down to the quarterback play. It's going to be the DJ versus Michael Penix show. And so far, I think what we've seen is, like against Oregon, Michael Penix, he threw for a lot of yards. He threw a lot of touchdown passes, but the mistakes, can he stay away from throwing the interceptions, having turnovers? I think it's going to come down to turnover margins and possession. Who's got the ball the longest? Who can win the turnover ball? And to what you said, I do agree he's had a better career since he left Clemson. I think it's a better situation for him. It more involves him as far as his abilities. But he hasn't had an amazing season, but it's good enough to win games. It is a average quarterback who can throw the ball. It doesn't make mistakes, and that will win you games if you have a good defense. And they can run the ball pretty well too. So that's something Washington can't do.
They are balanced. Their running back is 13th in the country, averaging 102 yards per game. They're balanced, and I think that
And
Washington
they look good doing it, man. They got some sexy
Oh, yeah.
uniforms.
and it's in
Oh, yeah.
Oregon State. I'm just saying, Oregon State for the win.
So for my sleeper pick, we didn't talk about it. Well, no, yeah, we had North Carolina at Clemson. I don't think we talked about it, but I think Clemson can pull out the upset. Clemson, they've won a few big games the past couple weeks, and they look on fire. So I think that's my sleeper pick. I think Clemson's going to win against North Carolina. The last game to talk about for this segment, we have the Kansas State at Kansas game. Stockley, I know you have a few things to say about that.
I do. I have a lot of things. I won't reveal my prediction yet, but I've got a lot of things. If we're looking on paper and we look at the defense side, who's got the better defense? It's Kansas State. Kansas State on paper statistically is 47. Their top 50 defense. Kansas 74. Okay, who has the best offense? Unfortunately, it's still Kansas State. They got a top 20 offense. They're 452, but we're right there at 425. So we're really close. Okay, so let's look at the pass. Surely KU at least has a decent passing game. No, Kansas State unfortunately is better. They're better by 25 years. Let's look at the run game. Surely we've got Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw, two-headed monster. Surely our run game. We got Bean at quarterback. Yeah, unfortunately we're actually 3 spots behind them. Kansas State's ahead 202 to 199. So unfortunately they have the better run game. But let's look at the run defense. Yeah, no, honestly, it's not even close on that either. Kansas State has a better run defense. However, we do have a better pass defense by 12 yards. Now let's look at turnover margin. Yeah, they're +7 and they're +9. But it's a rivalry game, so everything I just said, we can just throw it in the trash. Because if we know anything about rivalry games, they're all going to be close, and especially with this one. In my Oklahoma-Kansas prediction, I had Oklahoma. But I said the story was there for KU to pull off the upset. I listed the weather. I listed how it's the last time Oklahoma will play Kansas for a while. Kansas hasn't beaten them in 20-something years. And I bet against them, and I went Oklahoma. And Kansas pulled the storyline. They had the storybook ending against Oklahoma, and they beat them. Going into this game, right, I go to the University of Kansas. I'm gonna rock with the Jayhawks. Only if Jason Bean is my quarterback on Saturday. The freshman last week, Cole Ballard for Kansas, played well. He played well for just earning. He literally earned a scholarship 2 weeks ago. He played well for being a walk-on to being a player. True freshman. You look at Kansas State on the road. They lost to Missouri on a 61-yard field goal. That's unfortunate. That's unlucky. They lost to Oklahoma State by 9 on the road. They lost to Texas, and we can also maybe, for most of us, can agree that Texas, they were up by a lot, should have put them away and killed them. And then they go to the road against Texas Tech, and they beat Texas Tech by 18 because Texas Tech is starting a true freshman third-string quarterback. To my eyes, I don't think that's impressive. The Missouri game, yes, it's unfortunate, and that's a great loss to have on your resume. The Oklahoma State, kind of shaky based off last week because they got killed at UCLA. The Texas one, that's a good loss too. You lost in overtime. The win at Texas Tech is mediocre, but Texas Tech. But the storybook and the storyline going into this game, KU hasn't won against Kansas State in a long time. It's the last game in the booth this Saturday before they tear it down. The booth will be packed. We've got players. Jalen Daniels announced he's returning next season. Jason Bean is now getting reps in practice after being injured. It just sets up to write itself for a Kansas win. It's really hard, though, to go the Jayhawks. I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to pull them out. And I'm going to pull out the win solely because I think Kansas has the storyline to do it. I think they've had the run offense to do it. On defense, I think they'll be able to stop them. All they do is want to run the ball. That's their first. They got a running quarterback. You stop that, I think we'll be all right passing defense. They have 0 good wins on paper, if I'm being honest with you. What win does Kansas State have on paper that's significant? Nothing. Kansas does. They beat Oklahoma.
No, they beat TCU. Hold up.
And they're terrible. Right. Exactly. 0 wins, 0 good wins. Thank you for proving my point. To conclude my rant in my section, the Jayhawks are going to come up top 34-31. It's going to be a close game regardless. If Jason Bean does play, I think the Jayhawks do pull it out just because it's at home, last day at the booth. It's the last home game of the year. You've got a bunch of returning guys who came to rebuild this program. They're leaving. Emotions are going to be high. Hopefully the emotions don't play a factor where they lay an egg and it's just a dud. But I really think going into this game, I think KU is going to win. I think you're going to see probably the best performance the defense is going to have all year, the best coaching performance you're going to have all year in the offense. And I think we're going to get it done on Saturday.
Okay.
Rock chalk, baby.
Rock chalk, baby.
So going into our second to last segment for the college football, we have Heisman favorites. So right now, the top 5 for Heisman's favorites is Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Carson Beck, and Jordan Travis. So we'll each just spend maybe about 2 to 3 minutes on who we think will win the Heisman, give our opinions, and so I'll start off. I personally think that it should go to Jaden Daniels. I feel like that might be a common answer in here, but dude's balling. I know the record's like 7-3, 8-3, not the best record, but I mean, still records shouldn't matter when giving it to the best player in the league. And I believe that Jaden Daniels is balling out right now and having a stellar season. I think it's one of the best, or might be the best in LSU history as a quarterback. So, Adam, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you who I think should win it, and then I'm going to tell you who I think the people doing the voting will put as the winner. So I think that Jaden Daniels should have it in the bag. He is throwing the ball over 71%. He's got 3,164 yards. He's throwing 316 a game, 30 touchdowns, throwing touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's only rushed 114 times. Did you know that their starting running back, Logan Diggs, has only rushed 113? And not to mention, Jaden Daniels is rushing for 918 yards. He's probably going to end up getting 1,000 yards on the season. He should by the end of the next game if he runs a lot. And he's got 8 rushing touchdowns. That is a Heisman in my eyes. Now, the only thing that kind of shoots it down, which is going to be what I'm about to explain, is the record for LSU. Now, they are a top 25 team, and I agree that it should go to the most impactful player on the team, who has provided the most on the team, and he by far has been the most dominant player on LSU's team all season. But as far as teams who are currently in the top 10, and as far as you could say close to equal play, it's got to go to Bo Nix as well. Like, as far as what I think will actually happen, I think Bo Nix will be your Heisman winner. His story is too great. To start off at Auburn, have the situation in Auburn go south, literally, because they're in the South, go to Oregon, and conference in general. And as soon as he got there, it's like Oregon kind of had some type of energy that they didn't have before. And I'm not saying that past year or whatever affects his Heisman race for this year, but I do think it creates a story. And if I know anything all about media nowadays, it's all about story and about upbringing and stuff like that. But on top of his story as far as leaving Auburn and going to Oregon, he's also been playing really great football all year. He's over 77% throwing accuracy. He's over 3,000 yards passing as well. He's got 29 throwing touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, and 5 rushing touchdowns. Now, he doesn't have near as many yards on the ground as Jaden Daniels, obviously. But as far as a team standpoint goes, they currently, Oregon is in the top 8, top 10, whatever you want to make the argument about. And you could also make the argument that even though Jaden Daniels played great in the big games, his team didn't exactly win those big games. Alabama, Florida State, close game with Missouri. So against a top competition, he's competing well, but his team's not winning. And I know that's not everything, but you have to have your Heisman moment. And if Michael Penix were to lose this weekend to Oregon State and he has a great game, he's going to be out of the Heisman race anyway, even if he has a great game because they lost to Oregon State. That's just my opinion. Don't hate me, LSU fans. I do think he should win it, but I don't think he will.
Stockley, you want to go?
Yeah, so I agree spot on with what John Adams said. I think it should go to Jaden Daniels. I think he's having an incredible season. He is LSU's offense. He basically is their team. I mean, their defense is so bad, they got to hope to outscore the opponent, and that's solely on Jaden Daniels' arm and his legs. He's 27 in rushing as a quarterback. He's 3rd in passing. He's right there in the mix with Penix, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. He only has 4 picks. He's got 30 touchdowns, 71% completion rating, and he's first in QBR. I think statistically, and the way when you watch that game, he's the most impactful. He's the most valuable. He is the best player in college football. It's not about team-wise. It's about the player. And if you're looking at the best player in college football, it's Jaden Daniels. And a similar situation happened in 2016 with Lamar Jackson when they went like 9-3 or like 8-4, 9-4 or something. They got killed by LSU in their bowl game. But he was doing it with his arm and he was doing it with his legs, and they gave him the Heisman. And I think in a similar situation like this, throw records out the way. It should go to Jaden Daniels. Now, would I be surprised if they give it to Bo Nix? No. I mean, is he having a bad season? Absolutely not. Like John Adams said, the storyline of him, like from Auburn to now, and the progressions and steps he's made, and the 29-2 with the passing touchdowns to interception ratio, he's 6th in passing. His completion percentage is really freaking good on a good team that's competing for playoff implications. But I think Jaden Daniels is the Heisman. I do believe he's been the most consistent and the most valuable and most deserving.
Yeah, let me run through this just real quick. Y'all have already given statistics, so it shouldn't take long. If LSU wins out, I think Daniels wins it because we've had 2 people, Lamar Jackson you mentioned, but also RG3. RG3 was a 3-loss team with a Heisman winner when he was at Baylor. I think if LSU wins out, he wins it. Now, if they magically lose to Texas A&M or Georgia State this weekend, that won't happen, but you never know. If he loses to A&M, I don't think he'll win it. I don't think he'll give a 4-loss quarterback, no matter how good he's played. And then I do agree with you. I think it should go to Bo Nix because statistically he's been really, really good this year. Is he better than Jaden Daniels? No. Is he better than Michael Penix? Yeah, because my opinion of Michael Penix is this dude throws up 50-50 balls and his receivers just catch them. And that's about all he does. Like look at a lot of his touchdowns. They're like back. There's 50-50 balls in the back of the end zone, and his receivers are tall and really good. And they just go get it. But he can't hit like a crosser. He'll back underthrow a crosser, throw it to the back shoulder. So I think if Jaden Daniels at LSU wins out, I think he wins it. But I do think if he loses another game, he'll lose it, and Bo Nix should win it. Here's my hot take I had mentioned earlier. Someone that's in the top 5 for the Heisman, I don't think should be, because I think someone else should be. Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you could make the case has the most talent at the wide receiver position in college football. He has the most talent. But in the Heisman race, we don't talk about talent. It's about stats, what you produce. I think Malik Neighbors should be in the top 5 over Marvin Harrison Jr. Why? Marvin Harrison Jr. has 59 catches. Malik Neighbors has 72. They've played the same amount of games. Marvin Harrison Jr. has 1,063 yards. Malik Neighbors has almost 1,300. Marvin Harrison Jr. has 12 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors has 10 touchdowns. I would say Neighbors has 10 touchdowns because they have another elite receiver that gets a lot of other touchdowns. But you can't tell me that magically Marvin Harrison Jr. is just the best receiver and the third best Heisman odds and not have Malik Neighbors in there. Malik Neighbors should definitely be in the Heisman race if Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the Heisman race. That's my only hot take for the Heisman for today.
You heard it here.
Hang on.
Has to go first.
About that, so it's interesting you brought that up because of Marvin Harrison Jr., I actually pulled up Devontae Smith's Heisman winning stats based off of when he won. And so Devontae Smith had 83 receptions. He had 1,327 yards, and he had 16 touchdowns. He went on to catch 23 touchdowns and have 1,856 yards by the end of the season. But before the Heisman race, he was at 1,327, 16 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors honestly does have stats that are more similar to that showing than Marvin Harrison. I get exactly what you're saying. That makes complete sense. I didn't even think about Malik Neighbors, but wow, what a take by you. That was gorgeous. I'm not going to lie. And LSU fans are going to love that too.
So you heard it here. We gave who we think should be the Heisman winner. And to go into our last segment for the college football, we will each give our who we think will be in the college football playoffs at the end of the season after all the conference championship games. I'll go first. I think Georgia will be at the 1. And I think Florida State will be at the 2, Texas 3, and then Oregon 4. So, Jacob, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I'll go next. I actually have a Big Ten team in there. I have Michigan at number 1. I have FSU at number 2. I have Oregon at number 3. And I've got Bama at number 4.
I forgot about Michigan. God, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'm actually going to have Ohio State at 1. It'll be the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, but I'm going to pick Ohio State just for the fun of it. Number 2, I'm going to have Florida State. They're going to beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. Number 3, I have Oregon beating Washington. It's interesting because I didn't have an SEC yet. Well, Bama's going to beat Georgia, and they're going to go to 4. So Georgia's going to get outside the top 4. I don't think they put 2 SEC teams, even though I could see that happening. You could make the same case for maybe Ohio State, Michigan. Depends on how that turns out. But I'm going to have Bama at 4.
Wow, super unbiased. So mine is going to be Georgia at 1. Georgia will end up at 1. They'll stay at 1. I think Michigan. I don't think the Harbaugh situation really affects them that much. I think they'll beat Ohio State. So Michigan at 2. I do think Florida State wins out, even though I said I think Louisville could beat them. I think Florida State wins out and ends up at the 3. And then Even though I want Oregon State to have a magical run, I think Oregon wins out and they'll beat Washington, end up at the 4. That does leave Texas out, and I do think Texas wins the Big 12 championship, but they'll be left out because they have looked really weak the past five weeks. So my 1 through 4 was Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and then Oregon.
Well, we heard it there. There's our top 4 for who we think is going to be in the college football playoffs. I feel stupid because I completely did not think about Michigan. But I can't go back to my word.
You somehow forgot the one conference that has 2 undefeated teams in it. Like, one of them's going to make it.
I know. Yeah. Well, I can't go back to my word, so I guess I'll
We
stick
are
with
terrible
Hey.
takes, baby.
Holden, staying on brand.
Yeah.
Staying on brand. I always get the terrible takes.
Boys, it is time for the last segment of the night. We will walk through our personal top 5 worst sports moments we witnessed as we went through our top 5 greatest last week. This was submitted by my boy, Troy Fan. He said you should do your worst one. So let's do it this week. Top 5 worst sports moments that we've witnessed live, either in person or on television. Number 5 for me, I'm not a Saints fan, right? But I do know that I have a lot of Saints friends. Has to be Saints versus Rams 2019 NFC Championship game. The no call heard around the world, right? Man, that was a great game. And I remember sitting and we were at my wife's grandmother's house. Everybody was there. And I just remember him getting slapped by the Rams defender and just being no penalty at all, no flag. And the uproar it caused for weeks on Twitter, on social media. So I remember sitting there, and as a non-Saints fan, even I felt bad. Even I felt bad for my Saints people because, man, that sucks. Definitely after the Minneapolis Miracle. The year before or 2 years before, that sucks. So number 4 is a high school game. You know, I love my high school football. I did not go to Washita High School, even though I've mentioned them twice now on this list. Was 2008. I was at a Washita football game because my family had friends that and their kids played at Washita. So we were down in Central Baton Rouge, and Washita was like a 12-13 seed in the playoffs. Central Baton Rouge like a 4 seed. Washita had been winning most of the game. It was going to be a big upset. They'd been winning. And so we were sitting there. There was a few minutes left. Central starts driving. I don't remember the score off the top of my head, but I know that Washita was up like 3 or 4. Next thing you know, we're at the 40-ish yard line, and Central has 1 play left. They got 1 play left, and they roll out to the right or to the left. Their quarterback heaves up a 40-yard Hail Mary. Washita player jumps up, and instead of catching it, tries to bat it straight down to the ground. And right when he hits it down, it lands right in the hands of a Central receiver. And he catches it and falls into the end zone. And the place goes wild. Central storms the field. And so Central ends up winning off a Hail Mary in the last second to survive an upset from Washita in the second round of the playoffs back in 2008. Absolutely devastating. Hey, this is my favorite one on the list. Number 3. Let's go to All-Star Weekend for NBA. One of the worst sports moments of all time has to be the Fergie National Anthem. When you got NBA players giggling and LeBron James and Draymond Green like trying to cover their face from hearing you sing the national anthem, that is one of the worst moments in sports. And it's funny, it's not even like a sports activity. You're just singing. I mean, you did it so terribly that it was a meme. And all the NBA players were laughing, and it was a meme for a long time. And it's one of my favorite NBA moments because as an avid NBA fan, the All-Star Weekend can be boring, and it brought so much light and attention to a boring weekend. Number 2, another NBA one. Man, 2017 was the year of the Boston Celtics. We got Kyrie Irving. We got Gordon Hayward. And as an avid Boston Celtics fan, Opening night, we're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. And our boy Gordon Hayward goes up to get a rebound. Gordon Hayward lands on his leg, and it snaps. Oh man, I'm sitting here almost just upset now thinking about it. We were the NBA favorites for the championship. And opening night snaps his leg, so we lose our second best player. And what's crazy is that ended up being a phenomenal year as a Celtics fan because it was Jason Tatum's rookie year. It was Jaylen Brown's second year. Terry Rozier came out of the woodworks, and that was the year um, we went to the conference finals, and we lost to LeBron in 7 games. Last one, my senior year of high school, West Monroe. We were playing Destrehan in the semifinals, and we were a magical seed that year. We were the 8th seed, and we made it all the way to the semifinals. We'd been through a lot of injuries. We had like 7 guys tear the ACL that year. And we go down to Destrehan in the semifinals, and we're down 27-22, and we're making this last push. And Destrehan videoed their games and put it on YouTube. And it's 4th down with like 40 seconds left, and we hand it off to Trey Colvin. He goes off the right side and clearly gets the first down, and they mark him short and call it a turnover on downs. And, man, it just sucked as a senior losing your semifinal game, not getting to go to the Dome. But what sucks even more is when you go back on YouTube and watch the game and see he clearly got the first down. It's pretty clearly he stuck the ball out, got the first down, and then the ref takes the ball, goes like, nope, didn't get it, and puts it down, and we lost like that. So losing the semifinals of my senior year and not being able to go to the Dome for the state championship is my worst sports memory.
So to get into my list of top 5 worst sports moments, some of them are dear to me, and some I think is just absolutely awful. So for my number 5, I have Golden State blowing a 3-1 lead. You're 1 win for the NBA Finals, and you blow your first team to blow a 3-1 lead ever. That's gotta be sad. I know they won other NBA Finals, but still blowing 3-1 lead is not good at all. And number 4, so Tech and Grambling State were playing. I think this is the year after COVID, and Grambling State player made a tackle in a dog pile. When the dog pile all came out, you saw this one Grambling State player laying down on the ground, and his knee, is 90 degrees in a wrong direction. And what made it really sad about this was, obviously he got taken to the hospital, but he was very close to almost losing his leg. But he was able to keep it through many surgeries, and I think a year or two later, probably 2 years later, he was able to return back to the field and continue playing. For number 3, I had the Saints versus the Rams in 2019, I think it was. Obviously, Lucas said this earlier, but the no call was absolutely horrendous. Saints were on a roll that year, and yeah, no pass interference. It was a third and 10. Saints had the ball in the Rams 13 with a minute 49 to play. Lewis, the Saints running back, then on that play, runs a wheel route to the near sideline, and Breeze passes it to him, and the random defender hit Lewis way too early, was not going for the ball. He clearly knew he was going for pass interference. After the hit, he even got up looking for the flag and never saw it and started celebrating. For number 2, basically my second worst sports moment is my last games of my senior year for basketball and baseball. Basketball, we got blown out. I know it's kind of sad. It's sad knowing that I won't play with the guys I've been playing with for 5 years. My 3 other basketball guys in my class, knowing that was the last time we'll ever play against each other, was kind of heartbreaking, and the fact that we got blown out made it even worse. And it also is the best year CCS has had in a while for men's basketball as well. And then baseball, basically the same thing happened again. We were down at state in the semifinals against a school that had probably double or triple the size we had, and we lost 10-1, and knowing that I'll never pick up a baseball or hit a baseball again with my 2 senior baseball buddies. And for number 1, it happened this past Saturday. It's been a rough year for Tech football, and it's Tech losing to Sam Houston State. I don't have much to say to this. It hurts. Like, I'm still hurting from the loss. I predicted it was going to happen, I knew it was going to happen, and I was correct. Tech lost by 15 or 17 points, and it's been a sad football season. It really has, and that was just the cherry on top.
All right, my top five, I'm going to have, just like Holden, at my number 5 position, Golden State blowing a 3-1 lead to LeBron's Cavs, or LeBron and Kyrie, because he's probably the one who hit the most clutch shot in that whole series. Not really going to dive much into that. Number 4 is going to be a little different. Not personal, but watching the Masters in 2016, you wouldn't have expected a clip to come out like what happened, but on the first hole of Ernie Els' round in the Masters, he got to the green within 5 feet, and he 6-putted. Now, you don't have to be super good at golf to know that that's not good. You don't even have to pay attention to golf to know that's not good. But to be within 5 feet of the hole and to 6-putt as a professional golfer, you do that for a living, sir. And you're on the first hole of the Masters, the most profound 4 rounds of golf you can play in a year, and you 6-putt from 5 feet. He looked like a little kid just out there tapping the ball around. So even though it doesn't affect me, and he definitely wasn't going to win, it's one of the worst moments I ever got to witness live, and it was really embarrassing as a golfer. Number 3, I'm going to go the Atlanta Falcons choking a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady back in 2016. I was at my house with a bunch of friends, and we were outside playing basketball because, we thought the game was over. My dad comes outside and goes, "Son, they came back." We ran inside and watched the end of the game. Tom Brady, ring him, because he's got plenty of them. Number 2, this one hits personal. The kick 6 against Auburn. Chris Davis returning the field goal. It was a 57-yarder. Adam Griffith, I'm sure, gave it everything he had. But we all know what happens after that. Ran all the way back for a touchdown to beat Alabama. 34-28 in 2013. I cried a lot that night, and I wasn't in a good mood. Number 1 is the worst sports moment I think I've ever witnessed. Seattle Seahawks throwing the ball on the 1-yard line with the Super Bowl on the line. One of the most powerful running backs in the league, and Marshawn Lynch. You're on the 1-yard line. Anybody in this situation would run the ball, but they didn't. They decided, let's throw the ball. And that ended the game for the most part. And the Patriots went on to get a Super Bowl. And Tom Brady, once again, the GOAT of rings in NFL football, got another ring because of stupid coaching and decision-making. And I think any Seahawks fan, any Seahawks player would admit that that was one of the worst decisions you could ever make in that situation.
Yeah, and then to finish things off, I'll list my top 5 worst sports moment. At number 5, this one is a little personal because it's public humiliation. My senior year of high school, 2019. I'm at a group. I'm with my best friends. We're all watching Oklahoma LSU in the playoffs. The entire time I go through school, we're all like, "Oh yeah, it'd be so fun to have OU versus LSU. Like that would be such a fun moment." Um, it was not a fun moment for me. I walked in thinking that it would be close, and instead we got absolutely skull dragged and curb stomped, and that had to have been one of the most disappointing and humiliating losses I've ever experienced as an Oklahoma fan. That was terrible. It was hard to go back to school and wear my OU stuff. I felt like I had to hide, and yeah, that was a terrible game. Number 4, another personal one. I'm a giant Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and so the 2015-16 season, blowing the 3-1 finals. I mean, in my opinion, I thought that was the year that we were actually going to win it. Every pro team I root for, I've witnessed them win a title. And I did not witness the Thunder winning a title. When you have Kevin Durant, you got prime Serge Ibaka, you got Westbrook doing his thing, you got Steven Adams and Andre Roberson. And yeah, you go in, you hand Golden State back-to-back losses in the playoffs. You're sitting pretty at 3-1, and you go out and you just choke. And Clay and Steph and Draymond, they all did their thing. And fortunately, they also blew a 3-1 lead, so it negated that storyline. But that was definitely a moment I'll never forget. That was terrible. Number three, also personal, but also the no call that hurt, the worst no call I have ever seen in sports, the Saints versus the Rams. I have never been so frustrated and angry at an NFL game in my life. I've never been to the point of tears. I've never been where I'm yelling at a TV. That was the year that the Saints could have made the Super Bowl at least interesting. I think they would have won it all. Instead, we got a boring Super Bowl between the Rams and the Patriots, where I literally sat there on the ottoman and was like, man, this is the worst Super Bowl I've ever seen in my life. Coming in at number two, I have the Patriots versus the Seahawks. The Saints and the Rams don't make number two because I don't like Tom Brady, and I don't think he's the GOAT. I think this is one of these games that show that Tom Brady is not the GOAT. The Seahawks should have won this game. And it's so stupid and frustrating how you have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, and instead you throw a slant. In what world does that make sense in Pete Carroll's head? I am literally freaking Richard Sherman reaction of what? Like, how do you not run the ball with Marshawn Lynch? It is the biggest what if I have ever seen in my life because the Seahawks should have won the Super Bowl. And that should be one less ring Tom Brady should have. Number one, very personal. One of the worst moments I've ever had watching sports was the United States versus Trinidad and Tobago to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. October 10th, 2017 was a very, 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 very sad evening. I remember driving with my dad. We were running errands. And I was like, yeah, this should be an easy win. We got it. We're going to the 2018 World Cup in Russia. All we had to do was tie or beat Trinidad, which, you should never think about tying Trinidad and Tobago because they're terrible. And we went in, and this dude for Trinidad and Tobago, their right midfielder, scored two absolute bangers from outside of the box that went over Tim Howard's head. And I was sitting there distraught, like, oh my goodness, we might actually lose. We put in this kid called Christian Pulisic. He scores a goal, free kick, and we end up losing 1-2 and falling short. I've never cried so much in a soccer game or an outcome before. I sat there in my United States flag in a ball and sat in my room and just cried and cried and cried. So yeah, that's number one. My worst sports moment.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Terrible Take Sports Talk podcast. We hope you enjoy, and do not forget to answer this week's trivia question. You can answer down below in the comments if you're listening on YouTube, or answer on Instagram. If you're listening on Spotify, you can email your answer to terribletakesportstalk@gmail.com. You have until Tuesday at noon to answer. Again, congratulations to Blake Bassett for winning this week's trivia question. I'm Holden.
I'm Lucas.
I'm John Adam.
And I'm Jacob.
And we thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.